and welcome you to the first in our multiple part series. I can't confirm yet how many sessions there'll be. I know that our next one is going to be on July 21st, and so I'll talk about that momentarily. But I think that most of the faces, you know that since around 2013, North Carolina Campus Compact has kind of leaned into dialogue as a tool to help develop the skills of democracy. And so we've done that primarily using the National Issues Forum deliberative dialogue model. This past February, does everybody know how to do the smash with your hand to your camera? If February feels like it was a lifetime ago, I want you to give me the smash into the camera. Yeah, so back in February, which actually was this year, we had our Civic Engagement Institute, and we invited our campuses to bring a team so that you could dig deep into 6 additional practices of dialogue. Well, this new series is our attempt to introduce you to even more methods of dialogue. Why do we think that it's important that at this critical time in our formation of our nation that we are introducing our campuses to as many dialogue models as possible? Because we believe that we're at a pivot point as a nation, and if our campuses are not gaining the skills, the competency, and the confidence to start leading some of these difficult conversations, it is a major missed opportunity. So my hope, my goal with all of this is that one of them will resonate. You know, some of them are really a lot less, they require a lot less in terms of the setup, the process, the guides. Some of them are more intense, but we are strongly encouraging our network, because we know you all are committed to strengthening our democracy, that you start thinking about ways that you're going to do that. But I want to take a pulse really quick just to see where folks are. Does everybody know how to do the thumb-o-meter? All right, put your thumb up and let me see. How are people feeling? Are people good? Are you kind of, are you a little, you need some energy? All right, people are kind of all right. If you're like me, you've been on a lot of calls today. So what that means then is that just to get our bodies engaged with our minds, I'm going to invite everybody on the count of 3 to show me what it would look like if you transform your state of mind into being extremely energetic and excited. So I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to transform or sculpt your body and then hold it so we can all see each other. What would it look like if right now you're going to lean into this conversation, you're going to be fully committed? 1, 2, 3. I love it. All right, welcome everyone. If you haven't introduced yourself in the chat, please do that. I'm going to share my screen and just show you, I have a couple of really quick announcements. Let's see here. So, all right, so just a reminder, we have money. How many times do you have someone who just says to you, we have money? We got a Z. Smith Reynolds grant, and it had a 2-part goal. One was dialogue, one was election engagement. So we have the opportunity for your campus, particularly if election engagement is fairly new there, or it's not really a consistent programming that you all do. We are inviting you to apply to get a $400 activity fund and a $500 stipend for a staff or faculty person over the next, 3 months before the election, or 4 months, once your school year starts, to try to create some plans, some strategies. We strategically are unlike almost any other election fellowship that I'm aware of, and we're not targeting students. We're targeting faculty and staff so that you can find someone who's energetic, passionate, and who might be there for a while, who can keep it going, sustained, even beyond our funding. We also have mini grants. I now have 14. I originally announced we only had 7. They're $500, so please apply. I've extended all the deadlines. And then most relevant to our conversation today, we do have grants to support you implementing dialogue this fall. So they're $700. The minimum expectation is that you'll have 4 sessions related to this. One of them may be training for faculty and staff. 3 of them we would hope would be actually dialogue. If you can accomplish more than that, that's great. And actually, this is for the year. This is for the academic year. So this is not just for the fall. So if you can come up with an idea about one of these strategies you'd like to use, especially if you were at the Civic Engagement Institute and your team came up with a plan, I strongly encourage you to apply for one of these grants. And then I just want to announce some upcoming events. So again, this first session is part of a virtual dialogue series where we're introducing you to additional methods. So next up is Democracy Socrates Cafe. And that one's going to be on July 21st. And that one's going to go about an hour and a half because Chris Phillips, who created this model, is going to be joining us, and we're going to do breakouts where you're actually doing some of the strategies and the methods. So I'll send that link after this call. And then finally, for those of you who attend those, we have our regional virtual meetings. The topic this time is cultivating high quality community partnerships, but we are really going to focus our time on racial equity in partnerships. So I strongly encourage you to be part of that if that's something you're interested in. And at this time, I am excited. I am going to stop my share. And I get to introduce you to Bill Daughtery, who is from Braver Angels. He's also, you saw his whole bio. He's a professor at University of Minnesota. And he is considered one of the leaders in the field. If any of you were at the National Campus Compact Conference a couple of years ago, he was on the panel. And this model that he's created has national, international renown. And it's a gift for us to have him with us today and to honor him for his long-term work in trying to bring people together. So if everybody can clap, give each other high fives. Give each other high fives as we welcome and we thank Bill for his service and for his time with us today.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. I live in Minnesota, so really great introductions like that just make me nervous. Better is to say he's an above average presenter, that he's pretty good, and this hopefully will not be a waste of your time. And that way the bar is low. And then, okay, but you did a great job. Thank you for introducing me. And I'm delighted to be here. It's just fascinating to see everybody in the chat, the breadth of the campuses that are represented here. And you guys are known, North Carolina, for the Campus Compact work. So I'm thrilled to be doing this and to not to have to travel in an airplane to be with you. So I'm going to I have a slideshow here like everybody else, but I just want to, just as an intro, just to say that the Braver Angels, which used to be called Better Angels, by the way, you may have heard it that way, but given our litigious era, somebody else owned the trademark and they sued us. So we changed it to Braver Angels, which given that we all need courage right now, seems like it's a good fit with, so we've owned this. We got started after the 2016 election, really by happenstance, when two of my colleagues, long-term colleagues, working in the area of family and other sorts of issues, one blue, we call more people lean more liberal, from Upper East Side of Manhattan. David Blankenhorn called another colleague, David Lapp, who is a red. He didn't vote for Trump, but he's a conservative in Southwest Ohio. And they asked just after the election, what's the mood like in your part of the country? And you can imagine it was a funeral in Manhattan, Upper East Side of Manhattan, and there was joy and dancing in the streets in Southwest Ohio. And so they decided on the spur of the moment to get together 10 Hillary Clinton voters and 10 Donald Trump voters together for 13 hours over a weekend in Southwest Ohio in December, December of 2016. And they called me and I said, no, that's pretty brave. What were you thinking of doing with them? And they said they didn't know, but they thought I could figure out what we do. And I was sitting in the same place I am now, hoping that my weekend was already booked, but it wasn't. And so we put together a workshop, which was quite powerful. And when we asked people why they came, this was a small town, South Lebanon, Ohio. they came because they did not want to go on with the rancor and bitterness that had characterized the campaign. They said, we have schools to run and hospitals and roads, and we have to do better with each other. We can't just be this divided. So they decided to continue. This was just going to be a one-off thing. They wanted to go on. The group wrote a report to the nation. We did some media interviews. And then before we knew it, there was interest from other parts of the country in what we were doing. So we rented a bus. We rented a John Boehner, former Representative John Boehner's old campaign bus, and went through a number of states and towns like a grade B basketball team, running workshops. It converted them to 3 hours in a full day, and we added some other workshops in the summer of 2017. And just decided, given the responses we were getting, that we would just sort of create this then Better Angels, now Braver Angels approach. We decided to make it a membership organization, $12 a year, and to be mostly volunteer run. So that's how we got started. So we've been around since the last election, and we have a variety. So I'm going to share a screen here, so that's who we are. Our mission is to unify a divided nation. We want to build a working alliance to foster new ways to talk to one another, participate in public life, and influence the direction of the nation. Our pledge is that as individuals, we try to understand the other side's point of view, even if we don't agree with it. In our communities, we engage those we disagree with, looking for common ground and ways to work together. And in politics, we support principles that bring us together rather than divide us. A key decision early on was to create this rule of balance. At every level of leadership, from the board, the leadership team, state coordinators, we have alliances in local areas. At every level of leadership, we include both what we call reds and blues in approximately equal numbers. So this has been a key ingredient for us. So this is a slide now that's going to talk about our offerings. And I'm happy, by the way, what I'm going to do is go through some things here about our offerings, and then take questions. And then I'm going to go back to a presentation about a new thing we have coming up for the fall called With Malice for None. So that's the design here. So Red Blue Workshop, it's about 7 reds, 7 blues for either 3 hours or 7 hours, with a series of structured exercises. The goals are for people to understand each other beyond stereotypes and see if they can find some common ground. There are 2 moderators, and we have a number of exercises. And by the way, the things that we do in terms of our exercises are things that you see out there that I'm sure you do in your own setting, really carefully applied to the red-blue political divide. So one of those exercises is a stereotypes exercise. In fact, we begin our workshops with this, where we put the reds and the blues in separate rooms to come up with the top 4 negative false stereotypes that they think others have of them. And so they list those out. And then for each of those stereotypes, the group goes through them, answering 2 questions. If that's wrong, what's true instead? So for reds, the top one always that they list is racist. People think we're racist. That we're uncompassionate would be another one. That we are anti-science. We're xenophobic, homophobic. Blues tend to list arrogant and elitist, into big government for its own sake, anti-patriotic, snowflakes, will squelch free speech so that people's feelings aren't hurt. anti-religious. So they list those out. Then the first question is, if that's a false or exaggerated stereotype, what's true instead? So correct it. Correct the stereotype. What do you really like, your side? And then the second question, and this is a kind of, I'm now going to say part of what's distinctive about the Braver Angels approach. The second question is, what's the kernel of truth? Is there a kernel of truth there in the stereotype? And so kernel of truth might be it's true of some folks on your side. It might be something historical that's carried over. It might be a blind spot or something your group doesn't talk about or focus on much. It might be in the heated rhetoric of public debate, your side comes across this way. So we really invite them to come up with some kernels of truth in the stereotypes. And then groups come back together, and there's a presenter from each group who goes through the 4 stereotypes, the correction, and the kernels of truth. They each hear from each other. And then the question for the group after that is, what did you learn about how the other side sees themselves? And did you see anything in common? What did you learn about how people on this other side see themselves? And did you see anything in common? We have them in pairs first, red, blue pairs, and then around the whole table. And the structure of this workshop and the moderation is that's all that's on the table. And they've agreed on this, by the way, in the ground rules, to just focus on the question on the table. And so when they land the kernels of truth, as mostly they do, it really opens up the workshop, because when people are self-critical and not just defensive, it's extremely helpful. Next exercise is a fishbowl, something you're all familiar with. So we flip a coin, reds or blues, in the middle, and with the other group on the outside. And the questions are, why are your side's values and policies good for the country? Why are your side's values and policies good for the country? And the second question is, what are your reservations or concerns about your own side? What are your reservations or concerns about your own side? And so the first gives people a chance to articulate the best of what they think their group stands for, not in a defensive way. And then the second question invites self-criticism. And then again, they one-to-one, and then in the whole group, they respond to the questions. What did you learn about how the other side sees themselves? And did you see anything in common? The third exercise in the 3-hour, that's the workshop. In the 7-hour workshop, and there's a meal in here, there is a question and answer time where each group goes to a separate room and comes up with 4 questions of understanding and deepening for the other side, as opposed to gotcha questions. And so there's some helping people learn about how do you ask a good question. And they write those down, and then there's half and half, so 2 groups form with half red, half blue, and they offer the questions to each other. They can ask follow-up questions. They're not contradicting each other. They are probing and going deeper. And then the last part is what personal action steps could you take, what people could do on your side, what could be done across sides for people to work together across differences for the sake of our communities. So that's the red-blue workshop. We have a variety of skills workshops where we teach people how to communicate across the political divide. And so this can be anywhere from 7 to 70 people come to these, where we teach in the basic skills workshop how to listen in a way that the other person feels heard, how to speak in a way that they're apt to hear you, the stuff that anybody in our line of work knows about, but applied to the political domain with sample lines of communication, both red and blue, as people would be participants in political dialogue. And then they practice, and they practice with somebody from their own political persuasion, with the other person working from a script on either gun control or immigration. And we do that because for these workshops, we take all comers. And so we want people to learn the skills without having to actually be in a disagreement with somebody on the other side. So they practice in role plays. We have a special version of this for reds only and blues only, where we drill down a little bit more on some of the mistakes that reds and blues tend to make in political conversations. We have a special, we have an additional practice they do on how to talk with somebody who disagrees with you about President Trump. We have a, so various skills workshop. We have a depolarizing within workshop, which is one of our newer ones. And this is, how do you depolarize yourself in terms of getting away from stereotypes and ridicule for people on the other side. And so part of this realization to create this workshop came from the realization that a lot of the polarizing conversations that go on are within like-minded groups, where we do what I call the 4 horsemen of polarization: stereotyping, dismissing, ridicule, and contempt. Stereotyping, dismissing, ridicule, contempt. Actually, a lot of that goes on within groups where like-minded people. So blues with blues, reds with reds, Bernie bros with about the moderate blues, the moderate blues about the socialists, and so on. So how do we get past stereotypes, negative stereotypes of people who disagree with us, and then some skills in how to intervene in conversations with like-minded people when those conversations veer into stereotyping, dismissing, ridiculing, and contempt for people on the other side. So how to intervene, how to speak up, but without getting fired from your own group. So that's the Depolarizing Within workshop. That's 3 hours. And that, again, that can be from 7 to 70 people, and they can be of any political persuasion. Families and Politics workshop is the new one. Finished that one and field tested just before Mr. COVID hit. And so we haven't actually launched this one yet live. But this is a special workshop on how to deal with family members who differ from us politically. And so this is where I got to do a little teaching about family dynamics. I'm a family therapist with some, like the prime directive is, don't try to change your family member, you can only change yourself. And then skills in how to deal with some of the common roles that people play in families, like the gladiator, the defender, the sniper, the peacemaker. So skills for how to engage a family member in those various roles. So let me, I'm going to talk about the Better Angels debates here, but before I do say that we're taking these workshops online and in the final stages of perfecting those, so that those are or will be available online as well as in post-COVID going back to in person. And we have Better Angels debates, and these are a parliamentary style debate on a resolution where people, where there's no winners and losers, where there are no teams, but where people get to express themselves in either 4, 3, or 2-minute speeches, depending on the timing during the debate. And they're invited to build on what other people said. You're invited to change your mind. It's kind of a collective search for what we can understand together. And when I say it's parliamentary style, there's a kind of formality about it. There's a chair with a gavel. And the first 4 speakers are chosen in advance, so you can get the thing going. A 4-minute pro, a 4-minute against. So 2 and 2. And then after the speeches, there can be questions from anybody. And the questions are addressed to the chair. Again, very formal. And so you would say to the chair, I wonder if the last speaker has thought about such and such, and here's my question. And so the reactivity is kept down a bit because you're not having people get up and just directly question each other. These have become very popular. We have a whole division of college student debates. And we've taken those online as well. For instance, the debate tonight is, I don't know the exact resolution, but I know it's on systemic racism. And well, I just tried to sign up yesterday myself, and it's sold out. It's when I say there was a maximum of 500 people registered within 24 hours. And then they opened it up to 250 more, and that's sold out. So I'm trying to leverage my status in Braver Angels to actually get into the darn thing. So we're able to take on some pretty tough topics. The topic 2 weeks ago is the resolution was let's defund the police departments and spread the money to other services. And last week there were we had a all-member call with members of a project that I'm engaged in Minneapolis called the Police and Black Men Project, where we had officers and we had the Black men from the community, and we had a great conversation. So we do those member calls as well. So those are our offerings.
Bill,
The last one, pardon me?
Bill? Yes, we had a question. Are any of those Better Angels debates recorded so folks could see a sample of them?
Yeah, they are recorded. They are recorded. Yeah. So I'm just about to finish, and then I'll take questions. But so that's the sort of nice question because it shows interest, right? So then the last thing I want to say is we have one-to-one conversations. This is fairly new. The one-to-one conversation process: red, blue, urban, rural, and black-white. Where we have these are non-facilitated, these are standalone. People follow a particular format to engage across those differences. And I can talk about those a little bit later if you want. And we've piloted the red, blue, urban, rural, and black, white. And I've developed a new one for police officer and a black man. And there's a police department in Minnesota that is going to pilot those. And they basically take some of the strategies for the Red Blue workshop and apply them to one-to-one conversations where people meet as people, as individuals, and get to know each other and talk about some positives and some negatives that they want to talk about. Okay, structure, and then I'll take questions. We're a membership organization, about 10,000. Moderators and debate chairs. So if you're interested in affiliating with us and doing some of our workshops, all of our training is free and it's online. And it's online self-directed. So it takes about, I don't know, 15, 16 hours to go through. The screening process is that people need to have had some group facilitation training and believe in the principles of Braver Angels, including when you're moderating debates, you're neutral, you're not a red or blue, you're not bringing your own particular political agenda. So and we can talk more about that. We have organizers who organize workshops. We have local alliances. We have about 50 of those around in the country. These are people who have been through a Braver Angels workshop, and they want to go further. They want to do talk about particular issues. They want to organize other workshops. And the alliances have to be about half red, half blue. We have coordinators for every state, a red and a blue coordinator for every state, and mostly volunteers. We have about 10 staff in the whole country, and just thousands of people who are volunteers, including me. Okay, so that's I think that was the last thing I had here. Yeah, and so let me stop. That was a whole lot to fire hose at you. So happy to take questions and hear observations.
And if you want to enter it in the chat, then I'll read it out. Kristen pointed out the podcast. You Want to talk about that, Bill?
Yes, yes. So we have Braver Angels Media, where we have some really great podcasts. John Wood Jr., Kieran O'Connor run those. They get some very, very interesting folks. Like one that's on my list to listen to, John Wood interviewed Hawk Newsom from Black Lives Matter and Bob Woodson, who is a civil rights leader and a prominent African-American conservative. And I hear that was a dynamic conversation that I'm looking forward to. And then this afternoon, actually, half an hour after I got off this call, I'm doing a podcast on religious liberty and LGBT rights with Jonathan Rausch from the Brookings Center and prominent author, activist in the gay marriage area and religious liberty for LGBT folks, and Glenn Stanton, who works for Focus on the Family, and who also writes and blogs about religious liberty and gay marriage. So they know each other. They're both connected to Braver Angels, and I'm going to have the pleasure of interviewing them for the podcast. So can you see we have dialogue processes, but we're also trying to kind of influence the larger culture in the direction of saying that people of goodwill can come together across really some significant differences and have important conversations.
Great, thanks, Bill. And John, I see entered in the chat the state level contacts. So there are 2 in North Carolina. So the link is there for the state coordinators. So
was that a question? I'm sorry.
No, I was letting everybody know that it's. So the question from Russ at Elizabeth City is, has Braver Angels seen any real movement toward unity from its efforts across the country? Have recent events spurred more unity? Are people starting to understand one another better?
Oh boy, that would be hard to say, wouldn't it? It would be hard to argue that our country is coming together more. So we're one little organization trying to influence things, but there's large forces. I can say that we're getting interest from political leaders. We did a red-blue workshop for staff members of 2 members of our congressional delegation in Minnesota, Representative Pete Stauber, who is a Republican, and Representative Dean Phillips, who is a Democrat. They're both members of something called the Problem Solvers Caucus in Congress, which is half Republican, half Democrat. And we had a really fascinating day with them, and we hope to do more of that. One of our projects that I'll talk about before we finish has been endorsed by an organization called Former Members of Congress. And so we're getting, well, I got an email from a member of our state legislature just this week, a Republican woman who is interested in Braver Angels, and I told her about the black-white conversation, and she said, sign me up. So I'm going to sign her up with a African-American colleague of mine, and she wants to experience that. So we're getting interest, but of course our country is still horribly polarized. And this election, we have an election coming up, so I'll be talking about that in a minute.
Graham, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for this great overview. And so my name's Graham Bullock. I'm a professor at Davidson College. And I apologize, I missed the first bit of your talk because I was helping get my air conditioner fixed here.
I hear that's important in North Carolina, so yeah.
It is, yeah. But I've been wanting to ask you this for a while, or someone in your organization. How do you engage and make feel welcome, all the Americans who do not identify with red or blue, like a plurality of Americans actually, when the structure of at least many of your activities are pretty polarized themselves?
Yeah, so let me be clear that the only workshop where you have to identify as red or blue is the red-blue workshop. for the skills workshops, for Depolarizing Within, the Families and Politics, you know. And so there are people who are in the category of other, you know, who come to all of our things. The Red-Blue workshop is specifically designed around that difference. And so that's the only one, and you're welcome to come to observe. The other thing I'd say is that the research on people who are neither lean red nor blue is that it indicates a very small percentage of the population. We don't say Democrat or Republican. We say red or blue. We define red as you lean conservative and you more often vote for Republicans for office. Blue, you lean more liberal, you more often vote for a Democrat. When the political scientists, my understanding is, do the surveys, there's only a very small percentage of people who don't lean one way or the other. And
it's about 10%. Yeah.
Pardon me? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a political scientist, and
oh, okay.
It's about 10%.
Darn it!
Yeah.
I hate it when I'm talking to somebody who actually knows something. Yeah. So that's why we go for the lean in the direction rather than Democrat or Republican. But again, that's the one workshop where you really have to declare.
Bill, John from Chapel Hill is asking, can you give some examples of campus, how this lives itself out on the campus? And I'm going to add my own question.
Sure.
One of the reservations I get the most from leadership, and that is we prefer these other dialogue models that are quote unquote nonpartisan, that are, you know, as opposed to sort of saying, hey, we've got this big divide. So those are two connected questions.
Yeah. There are some campuses in the Midwest that have Braver Angels units in them, student-led. The debates, I can say that the debates have been our biggest success so far on campuses. I will say that one of the challenges we have for many of our workshops is attracting reds. Blues, you know, gravitate much more to the kind of the dialogue thing. And on campuses, we find that having debates is a great way into the Braver Angels work for Reds, who would, you know, who'd like to come and kind of, you know, hash out what's really the truth here. So one of the reasons I'm excited to be talking to you today is that I think there's much more opportunity on campuses, and that's why this is such an important chance for me to be talking to you all. And so, Leslie, your question is, I think you're saying that campus leaders often want to stay away from anything that sounds like politics, or that that recognizes the political divides. Well, boy, they can keep their head in the sand, I guess. So yeah, but I'm sure you run into it. It's interesting on my campus, as I'm sure many campuses, at the University of Minnesota, we are upfront about talking about lots of forms of diversity, which is important. It didn't used to be, right? But political diversity is, woof, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And so even for folks in the equity, inclusion, diversity area, there's often skittishness about doing anything with political and ideological diversity.
Thanks, Bill. Any other questions? For hands. All right, Bill, I think we're good to for you to introduce us towards to the.
Okay, so so the next thing I want to talk about is an initiative that we're cranking up this summer and into the fall. It's called With Malice Towards None, which is from the Lincoln phrase from his second inaugural. And it's based on the almost certainty that our country is going to be highly divided this fall over the election, and in particular after the election, when about 60 million people, give or take, are going to think that the other 60 million people, give or take, made a horrible mistake in who they elected president and you know who's going to be running Congress. And so it occurred to some of us that if we're in the depolarization business and you can predict with high degree of confidence, much more than the confidence about the COVID pandemic and the spiking there, we can predict with high confidence there's going to be a spiking of polarization, particularly after the election. Why don't we try to do something to prevent it, if you will, or to ameliorate it, or to leverage this in a way that might make a difference. And so the other thing I want to talk about and invite you to think about is, let's see, so slideshow from the beginning. Oh. Okay, with malice towards none. Oops, I went up here, okay. So the challenge, as I said, is the days following the November to the election could be the most divisive period in modern US history, no matter who wins. And the opportunity is to seize the challenge by inviting people to pre-commit to treating those on the other side with respect and not hostility, and to participate in events after the November 3rd period to witness to that commitment. So I want to underline what this is about is not saying, geez, whoever gets elected, you know, will support and blah, blah, blah. It's about how are we going to regard and treat our fellow Americans, our fellow students who vote the other way. And so we have three venues that we're working on, religious settings, colleges, and civic organizations. And so for the college part of it, phase one is activities to generate interest in the early fall. And so we have now about, we've just started to recruit in the last month. We now have 20 colleges and universities, and we're hoping to grow that a whole lot more because we've really just gotten started. And we're kind of working out the specifics of this with the early adopters. So this what I'm saying now is what's emerging as we work with particular college leaders. First year orientation, getting this in there. By the way, for first year orientation, we have a 40-minute e-course on Brave Angel skills that I did in front of a live student audience as part of an orientation that we recorded and can be used for that purpose. Recruiting student leaders early on, and this be during the fall. We're looking to do a national webinar for all of the campuses with some maybe a prominent speaker too, talking about polarization and ways to diminish that. So phase one is the build up, the seed planting, inviting students to consider how they want to regard those who vote the other way, and to pre-commit, if they're interested, to going to gatherings after the election or after November 3rd or whenever the darn thing is settled. So, but after the phase two, there would be separate gatherings of those who are happy about the election and those who are distressed about it. So the first gatherings are for people who are similar to you in terms of how you feel about this. We do not want to get together on November 4th, people who voted for Trump and Biden in the same space. But so the goals are to deal with their emotions, positive, negative, and commit to bringing people together rather than for dividing us. So the temptation for those who feel their side is won will be triumphalism and contempt for these low-life people who voted the other way. And for those who lost, of course, grief, anger, fear, And so lots of strong emotions. So we want to have some gatherings. We've got some templates for how to do this that can be adapted to local settings. But and then we'd be asking people at the end of that to commit to some action steps. One of those could be doing one-to-one with somebody on the other side. Another, we hope, would be to commit to the next phase, joint gatherings, late November, early December, that bring together people who are happy with the outcome or distressed with the outcome. And these would be the format of Braver Angels Red Blue workshops and commitments to further, can see some typos here, to further joint actions. Because we're hoping to build kind of a movement around this, that people who would discover more commonalities across those differences, that they would want to stay together, work together up through the inauguration, which will be another spiking period of time. Remember the last inauguration we had, and that they might want to stay together and work towards change. So information about that is on the Braver Angels workshop under what we do. There's a description and ways for campuses to sign up. And just a last part, and then we'll take a few more questions. So Braver Angels, we were better angels, quoting Lincoln, the mystic chords of memory will yet swell the chorus of the Union. This was, of course, at the end of the Civil War, when again touched us, surely they will be by the better angels of our nature. But he also said the occasion is piled high with difficulty. We must rise with the occasion. And we certainly seem to be in one of those moments in this country. So that was presentation number 2. I'm happy to take questions or comments about with malice towards none. I'd like to encourage you to think about whether your campus might participate or anything else related to anything I've said here.
Michelle is asking about how they could get access to the orientation recording.
The orientation to?
You said for student orientations that you had a.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. If you email me, I'll put my email into chat. I can get you a link.
Diane, they're right here.
Great, and John wants to thank you, very nicely done, to show the array of dialogue models under a common set of principles. And Bill has put his email address, bdoherty@umn.edu. But Kimmy from Duke is asking, what does the process of bringing Braver Angels to a campus look like? Are campus representatives trained to facilitate? Or does someone come from Braver Angels to facilitate the different types of offerings? Yeah,
no, we really, the first step could be bringing in some Better Angels moderators, right? Because there are a lot of them in North Carolina, by the way. But what we really hope is that some folks on campus would become moderators. Then it really lasts. And so, and when we did this, when we started some years ago, one of the decisions we made is to never charge for the moderator training. And there's never a charge for our workshops. We rely on fundraising, which, you know, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, you know, some membership fees. But the agreement with moderators is we give it to you for free, and then you don't charge anybody.
Bill, you talked about some workshops that are going to pivot to be virtual. When will those be? Yeah,
they're in the final piloting phases now. The skills workshop, the red blue workshop, the depolarizing within workshop, those are real close right now. And we've been surprised how well they translate, you know, through Zoom. It's been gratifying. We've learned to do fish bowls through Zoom. Man, who would have thought of that? Okay. you just turn off the cameras of the people who aren't in the fishbowl. And we've learned to do breakout rooms with a moderator in a breakout room, like the stereotypes exercise. You know, the moderator and just a screenshot, and it's really quite amazing what can be done.
Great. Tammy is asking, can you share some of the civic and religious groups that are affiliated?
Yeah. Yes, with Malice or none. The religious groups are coming on board now. We've got some, and we're deliberately, by the way, this is part of the strategy with Braver Angels. We deliberately try to recruit from across the spectrum, and so we've got some major evangelical churches, including some with national visibility, and a major organization that we haven't locked in yet, so I can't. But if I said it, you would all recognize it. So I can't say that yet. But on the other hand, we have the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church of the United States, who is going to encourage every Episcopal church in the United States to participate. In my hometown here, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the first three we got on board were an Evangelical Covenant Church, a Unitarian Church, and the Catholic Basilica. Okay, so again, our strategy is to try to have a broad net. It may be something worth my saying here as well when you think about campuses. For campuses like everywhere else, it's really important, we found, to try to get red students and blue students, self-defined, on board early. One of the things that happens with the work that we do around dialogue and communication across differences, it tends to be defined as a blue thing. And if you don't have, we've learned, if you don't have reds on board endorsing, sponsoring, seeing this is useful for them, it gets just defined as a blue thing. Similarly, if we just started off with all the liberal churches say, hey, dialogue, yeah, sign me up, then more conservative churches would stay away. So that's something we've learned over the years.
So Bill, if people are trying to connect with other groups that are involved in North Carolina,
yeah,
that be that earlier link that showed the two state coordinators, would they be the ones that, so let's say we have a campus in Western Carolina,
yeah,
to know if there's any local affiliates. Would they reach out to the state coordinator?
Yes, the state coordinator would be perfect. Yeah, okay. There is, and actually one of your colleges is already on board with Malice or none, Leslie. We talked about Ryan Loire. Did I say that correctly?
Lenore Ryan.
Lenore Ryan is one of our early adopters with Malice towards none. So I can get you, actually online, but I can certainly get you the contact information for your state coordinators.
Great, thank you. All right, and I think we have 5 minutes. So Janice from NC State is saying there are multiple models for civic dialogue. Do you have connections with any of the other groups?
Sure, we're part of alliances with other groups. We have good relationships with lots of other groups, and so yeah, we've done some living room conversations is one that we've done work with. So yeah, let 1,000 flowers bloom. There's lots of great stuff out there.
All right, are there any final questions? All right, I'm going to share my screen really quickly because I didn't get to my final slide. And that is that North Carolina A&T State University is, they've got a ongoing series where it's being sponsored by their Council of Presidents, where they've got conversations around race and racial equity, and they've sent us this flyer. So I will be, the next one is on July 14th at 6 p.m. And I'll be sending that out also in my follow-up email, but I didn't want to lose my commitment to announce that. So I'll send you details about that. And I ask you to join me in thanking Bill. Again, this is his bio, the co-founder of Braver Angels, professor and director of the Marriage and Family Therapy Program in the Department of Family Social Science in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Minnesota.
And you said that all in one breath. That was good.
Hey, I tried really hard. So if everybody could give us the ASL clap. Bill, thank you for what you're doing to bring people together, and may we all see the fruit of it as we move forward as a nation. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for the opportunity, everybody. Bye-bye.